Welcome to another edition of In the Weeds with Ikard and Lehman, presented by Riverwind Casino. Riverwind is Oklahoma City's premier casino experience, and there are so many reasons why Riverwind is consistently voted OKC's number one casino, but it all starts with their amazing variety of gaming thrills and excitement. Riverwind's beautiful award-winning environment plays host to more than 2,800 of the latest electronic games with a huge selection of table games, including blackjack match, roulette, and Teddy's favorite, craps. No matter what your game, Riverwind has it in spades and hearts. And to learn more about their gaming promotions and entertainment options, all you got to do is visit riverwind.com. Riverwind Casino, good times, great rewards, and it is spring football time in Oklahoma.
It is. We got some media availability to kick things off, so we're here.
Let's get right to it, man. There's a lot to digest. We heard from John Mateer, Brent Venables, and OU's new GM, Jim Nagy. But let's start with QB1. And we've gone through and selected what really stood out to us. And this first clip from John Mateer, he's talking about what makes Ben Arbuckle such a good coach.
I'd say the details and just the feedback that we get after every play. And maybe it's not on the field, but in the meeting room, every play there's something we can improve on. And he does it in a way that encourages us, doesn't put us down. Now, here and there he's going to get on to us because he has to. We're quarterbacks, we're the leaders, and if we do it wrong, you got to get on to us, you know. But I'd say the details that he has and the options that he gives us in the offense, we have carte blanche to change whatever we want, and then he teaches us when to change things and the better place to get to.
Well, Ted, that's what you call a ringing endorsement of your quarterback coach and offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and that's good. I mean, that's why the pairing was so important. And obviously, you would have loved to have either one of those guys on their own, but getting them together and knowing that relationship is in a well-oiled state. Like they've already figured this thing out to some degree how they work together. So I don't know. I think it's good to hear Mateer say all those things about Arbuckle. I'm just, it's talking season, and we've kind of heard this stuff. I'm just anxious to see how it all works, and I'm very confident that it will. I don't know. I'm glad we got the perfect pairing, I guess. We kind of got a coach and a player in the transfer portal to some degree. It's pretty cool.
I am the ultimate actions speak louder than words guy.
Yeah.
I loved hearing what Mateer had to say about Arbuckle. He also mentioned how he's already developed a bunch of relationships with the guys on the team. And that was stuff we were hearing leading up to the bowl game.
Yeah.
Everyone just kind of loves the guy. But all I need to know is he came to OU.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's a large dollar figure that came with that. I understand that. But the guy had some choices. All I need to know about how he feels about Ben Arbuckle is that he followed him here.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, we paid him a lot, but we didn't pay him the most that he could have made. So, I mean, I think that, to your point, he followed his coach.
I look forward to seeing the first time when Ben Arbuckle gets real critical on the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Because he said, hey, when he's got to get in us, he'll do it. So I look forward to that moment. It's always fun to see a coach's first blow up on the sideline. Can't wait.
Yeah, and we can see a first blow up from offensive coordinator. If we get to see a new linebacker coach maybe blow up on some people, this is going to be fun.
It's going to be awesome. This next clip, John Mateer and Teddy Lehman are cut from a very similar cloth when it comes to what is fun.
I mean, I'll be honest, I used to struggle with the word fun on the field because if I'm not winning, like, it's not fun if you're not winning. We had a lot of success this past year, so it was fun. People say I have swag. I mean, you just play football. I have the ball in my hand every play. I mean, I get the opportunity to do something with it, and cameras on me all the time, so I guess I have swag. Some people say I have toughness. I just feel like I have an obligation to give everything I have for my teammates.
Winning is fun.
That's it,
Do
right?
everything you need to. He feels obligated to his teammates. He's saying all the right things. And the good thing about it is like it feels very genuine. He doesn't seem like a rehearsed type of guy. I was very encouraged by everything he said there. Yeah, that is a starting quarterback. There's no doubt about it.
I He's right. You know, I take Baker for example. Baker is the best. He's so much fun to watch. You could tell that he just has fun playing the game. Well, yeah, it's fun to watch someone playing the game, winning and having fun. But as a fan, you don't want to watch someone out there that looks like they're having a great time and they're losing, right? So they're married together and always will be. But I get the feeling from him. He is you mentioned you're an action guy. I think he is his ability and his play on the field really leads his personality. As he gets out there and starts to make plays, and he's in a feel for the game or the season. However, I imagine that's whenever you'll really start to see the personality come out with him.
His demeanor at the podium is slightly different than demeanor that I studied on tape,
Yeah,
which I'm all for it. So I think that it is what we've heard ever since he got here. Like he's wired exactly the way you want your starting quarterback to be wired. And I just think that him saying, "Hey, I feel obligated to my teammates." Like we know every guy in that locker room is going to see that clip.
yeah.
And that's not insignificant. All that stuff matters when you're the highest paid player on the team, when you're going to be the face of the program, like it all adds up. So he said all the right things in that regard. Now, I thought this was pretty cool. He got asked about Heisman Park and walking by that every day. And I thought his reaction, once again, he said exactly what you want to hear your quarterback to say.
That's something that can happen as an outcome of the process that you do every day. And I want to win games, and you win enough games, that'll happen. That could happen. But that's not the first priority. It'd be really cool. It would. I'm not going to say it won't. But winning games is the most important, and then we'll see what happens after that.
It would be cool.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, that's a sign that things are going well for sure. But he's right. If you show up somewhere, and I mean it's one thing to have goals, but if you just accomplish the things you're supposed to, get through your workouts, your practices, do the things you're supposed to do in the game, like all of that stuff is going to come. Like you can't really set off to win the Heisman. You got to set off to hit all of these goals along the way, and those things just end up showing up. And it all starts with winning, especially here. If you can come win at Oklahoma, given the schedule and the conference that we're in and all the eyeballs that would bring, if you're able to pull it off, that stuff will take care of itself easily.
It makes sense why he gets along with Venables. He's clearly a process-driven guy.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have we heard Venables talk about that? So I love that he understands, hey, if that all comes, great, but it's going to come from us winning games.
Yeah.
That's the exact mentality you want your quarterback to have. It with what he said during his press conference, it's clear that he puts the team before his own accomplishments.
Yeah.
Which typically that's what the best ones do, man. So I would say John Mateer nailed it.
Yeah, and it's not, you can tell when there's a guy, which, not everyone's the same. And I don't even think that there's any one way that a quarterback needs to be, but you feel like sometimes guys are saying that because they know it's what they're supposed to say, and it seems a little inauthentic. That doesn't seem to be the case, at least for me in first impressions with Mateer. I think he honestly believes it.
I'm with you. And I thought maybe the most authentic moment of his presser was something that, unless you were watching live, you did not see. But I was able to capture it, and it's the moment he sits down at the podium.
It's a lot of cameras. It's a lot of cameras.
It's as if we witnessed the moment where John Mateer went, "Oh, I'm the quarterback at Oklahoma. This is a big deal."
Yeah, and you know, because what we watched on film, like you alluded to this a minute ago, like the way he plays, there's a lot of personality there, right? There's a lot of confidence. You heard him mention it. People say he's got swagger. Well, I mean, that may be this clip may be a little bit of a reason for the subdued personality at the moment. This is going to be a totally different deal, media wise, coverage wise, than what you had going on in Pullman, Washington.
Just a little different, but I thought that was such a wholesome moment, man.
Yeah.
Like the size of the smile that comes to his face. I thought that was absolutely great.
Yeah, he's like, dang, maybe I should have dressed a little bit different, or I don't know. It was like oh my gosh, yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of people seeing this, and I don't even think that crossed my mind.
Just funny. All right, let's get to what the head football coach had to say. And Ted, we got to start with the quote of the day. Here's Brent Venables on why he's calling the defense in 2025.
Why am I going to call the defense? Because I'm good at it. And I'm confident in it. And we've got a great staff. And if I'm going to be successful, if the players are going to be successful, if the product is going to be what we want it to be, it's going to be because of all of us. And somebody's got to lead it. I did that in 23. We made improvement. In some areas, not as much as we wanted, but so I know what that looks like in managing game day and in season, out of season, the meeting room, practice field, all those things. I know what that looks like. I have a good feel for that. And but many people do it at a really high level where they call an offense or call a defense and have a lot of success. No guarantees with anything, but it's a comfort zone for me. And last year we went 6-7. I didn't call the defense, so that didn't work very well.
Think it's safe to say that BV is comfortable calling the defense. That was such a great answer.
I love that answer, and I 100% agree. And that's why I was not ever. I mean, there seemed to be a bit of a controversy on whether he's going to call it or how it's all going to go down. I totally welcomed it because he is good at it. Fact. And I love whenever he talks about, and I've heard him mention this before, like you're in the heat of a game and the season's on the line and it's a critical moment and all of the pressure on the call and what could happen, what could go right, what could go wrong. He says that's like the quietest time that he has. And I love that. And I understand the sentiment. I know what he's talking about, what he's going through there. I wish, like my one thing is I hope that he figures out a way to where his entire football team can mirror that, because that is it's a trait that not a lot of people have. Like the more chaotic, the crazier the atmosphere, the easier it becomes, the more grounded you feel, the quiet, like he said. It's a great thing to be able to pull that off for yourself. If this football team can mirror that, we've got something.
We need all of these guys to turn into absolute psychos in the best way. In the best way. That's all I'm saying. That'd be great. But what a fantastic answer.
He's
I'm
great.
good at it. Fair enough. You are. That's why you're the head coach. Oh, I love that answer so much. Something I didn't love, Ted. Venables telling us all the guys that will miss spring ball.
We do have a few players that will not be available, and I wanted to cover that with you guys. I have 9 guys that your typical out of season. Hey man, let's get these guys. A lot of guys battled through some injuries. I know it's been well documented. All the guys that were banged up and didn't play during the season, but there's several guys that actually just played through some injuries that aren't abnormal. Heath Ozida will be out, had a labrum. Cade McIntyre had a labrum, just been high school injury. Jaden Jackson played all year with a labrum tear, so he'll be out. Logan Howland, same thing. Got guys that just fought through it and battled through it, and but they'll all miss the spring. Seth Freeman showed up here, didn't hit. He didn't have an ACL, didn't even know it. As a long snapper. KJ Daniels, he's had a hamstring from high school. Just he can't get over it, and we're going to help him get over it. Just keep him. It's a severe hamstring injury, so he'll miss most of the spring. Andy Bass re-injured his ACL, so he's back at it a second time. And Javante got hurt in a game there late in the season, and with a foot. And so we're going to keep him out of the spring. And then Darius Offalava had a high school injury that he's been a part of OTAs and might do it next couple of days. And then we're going to put him on the shelf and get this old a cleanup job on one of his knees, just something that he's battled through and just with the pain. So he'll miss the rest of spring. And we'll have a handful of guys like a Peyton Bowen that will be part-time. And he's a guy that battled through a turf toe all last season and really affected him. And he just played through it week in and week out. And those turf toes are really just it's a really funky injury. And then we'll have a handful of other guys. Gentry Williams will be a guy that he'll be cleared during the spring, but we'll try to take care of him as well, and be just a guy that we give him some individual work, but not any of the contact stuff, things of that nature. I think Jaden was working some routes on air and might have had a small setback. We'll get final word back on that, so don't want to really say anything in that regard.
That's a lot of names, and I really wish the part about Jaden Gibson was not added at the very end of the press conference.
I know. I listened to the whole thing, and I enjoyed it. Was just going along with it, and then right before he gets off, it's like, because someone asked the question, it's like, oh yeah, well, he may have suffered a setback. I was like, I won't tell you what I said as I was walking around the house with my headphones on, but it's quite the list. And, like you talked about, and he alluded to it, that ties into the spring game situation.
No doubt. I'm very bummed for Heath Ozida and Logan Howland. The growth that both of those guys showed in the back half of the season, it was really encouraging for me. Now, clearly both of those guys were playing banged up. So now I need to go back and watch that and kind of reevaluate it, knowing that both had bum shoulders.
Yeah.
So that kind of changes how I need to view that.
Hard to play
it just
football
does.
with bad shoulders, especially the positions they're playing.
Jaden Jackson was pretty damn good with a bad shoulder.
Good point.
Just saying.
Fair.
Just saying.
Fair.
But the KJ Daniels situation does not sound good. But I hate that for Andy Bass so much that happened in bowl practice. The part-time situation for Peyton Bowen with the turf toe. Turf toe is the absolute worst, dude.
Yeah, it's a brutal injury. I mean,
we were wondering, and we had some discussions with the staff during the season and didn't talk about it publicly, but he couldn't play. He didn't play wide open all season long because he just couldn't get right, man. I hope he can get right. I want to see what wide open Peyton Bowen looks like.
Yeah. And it's It's a brutally painful injury, and it just it's like mental warfare also because it never stops hurting. You can't do what you need to do, but it's not one of those things like you feel like you need to be in crutches. It's just I don't know. It's taxing, and it can be something that becomes a long-term problem if you don't take care of it, if it doesn't heal properly. So, yeah, I think that's probably smart with him.
And then Javante Barnes. That that foot injury, I think now that we know that it has been this long of a timetable, you're familiar with what that timetable looks like.
Yeah.
You're familiar with that injury.
Yep.
That's I'm just doing a process of elimination here.
Yeah, and it kind of felt that way a little bit during the season, and then he'd come out dressed out, maybe like he was going to go. Um, I don't know if he had the surgery, Liz Frank, or what exactly it is. But do you know? Is it the same foot that he had the first injury he missed? Was the spring before?
That's a great question. I don't know. Hadn't thought about it. But now that we know that he's missing spring because of this, he suffered a very severe foot injury.
Yep.
So let's hope he can get back, man.
Yeah.
The long road.
He's a guy that he just needs to be right physically, and that goes for a lot of these guys that it's just really hard to ask everyone to go out and go above and beyond whenever you're playing, injured or hampered in any way. So, I mean, it's a long list, and there's a lot of pivotal players on there that you're expecting to either contribute or have big springs to put themselves in a position to contribute.
Small setback with the patellar tendon for Gibson. I really do not like the way that sounds.
I don't either. I wasn't happy whenever I heard that, and I initially started thinking like, what could that even mean? I don't even know what that means.
Let's just hope for the best.
I my I was hoping that maybe a soft tissue injury for maybe a lot of guys that hurt the knee have some hamstring on the other leg issues and stuff. Maybe something like that is what I was hoping for, and not the actual surgical area having a problem. But I don't know. Hopefully that's good news, whatever it is they're looking for.
Let's hope. Let's remain optimistic. Let's remain positive. No one freak out. All right, let's get to a couple more clips of what Venables had to say in the presser. But first,
you listen to this podcast to get insight from the guys who played the game. Why don't you take that same approach when it comes to buying your beef? When you order from Didier Ranch, you're getting your beef directly from the people who raise it. A rancher knows what it takes to grow premium quality beef. Didier Ranch has done it for over 100 years right here in Oklahoma. From delicious 21-day dry-aged ribeyes to savory steak burgers, there's no better place to get your beef. Get your beef from the guys who've done it and use code Oklahoma15 for 15% off on DidierRanch.com. Didier Ranch, tradition tastes better.
Brent Venables talked about Jim Nagy becoming the general manager of OU football. He went through why they hired him, Jim's expertise, all the connections that he has, how good of a dude he is. That's stuff we've talked about on here. But what I found very interesting was what BV said about Nagy's role, that scouting staff, and how that will help him with the time management piece of being a head coach.
I think the biggest thing from a time management standpoint, that takes a load of time. Gives you back to, again, the things that you want to be as a head coach, developing your team, doing the X's and the O's, focusing on your culture, giving your coaches the resources they need to be successful, so that took a lot of time, and you already have a very finite amount of time as it is. And so not being, stretched thin is, and having a staff that's all they think about 24/7. And again, emotionally, there's certainly a business aspect to it. And, but man, I care about people in this space. So you want to still be who you are and be able to make good business decisions. And so for me, I'm a very open and upfront and honest. You're going to get exactly how I feel. And so telling somebody, a 18, 19, 20-year-old what their valuation are not easy discussions.
Ted, our hope was that Jim Nagy coming on board would allow Brent Venables to focus on ball.
Yeah.
And that's basically what he said. The development piece, the X's and O's, the culture. I thought it was refreshing. You don't hear a lot of coaches acknowledge, like, he struggled with some of the business discussions that he had to have. And now that Jim Nagy and this scouting staff are going to handle that piece of things, he doesn't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting. And I just wonder how much time he had to burn with every recruit. I say a lot of recruits calling every time another school calls him and offers some NIL deal. Hey, coach, I just wanted to tell you that Oregon called and this is what their NIL offer was. And I mean, it has to be just nonstop, right? Like from every recruit out there, and dealing with all that stuff is got to be brutal. And like he said, like, he cares about the people. So having those hard business discussions is, not something that he looked forward to, and probably not his strength. I mean, he's a great recruiter, but I'm sure that takes what he's great at and puts him in a bad, you know what I'm saying? It's hard to really thrive whenever it's so often breaking down to dollars and cents talk, not what we want you to do, how you can improve, what, development I see you doing, and who you remind me of, and all of those things is what Venables is great at. But when it just gets reduced down to how much you're paying me, then it's hard for him to thrive, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And he'll still be involved in that piece, but I think it's going to be, maybe rejuvenating is too strong of a word, but I think removing him from a lot of those initial conversations, I think he's just going to have more fun coaching football.
Yeah.
Because he said it, I'm a traditionalist.
Yeah.
I don't think he liked that piece at all. And now it's taken off his plate, and it really, I'm hoping it allows him to maximize his strengths. And his strengths are X's and O's and developing relationships. Anyone that has been in a room with him, he can make you feel like you are the only person on the planet when he's locked in. So I think he can focus more on the culture and the relationships, and removing himself from those tough, awkward conversations. I think it's only going to increase the relationships he has with his players.
You know what it honestly does is, to some degree, you can do the good cop, bad cop situation. And it's like, this is all that's all money they're going to give. Like, I'm on your side. I think, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it kind of puts him in a position to where he can put that on someone else to some degree, if that makes sense.
This last one from Venables, this is This is something that we've talked about, and this is Venables on Jim Nagy and the staff he's going to put together evaluating their own roster.
That'll be different. We're not having to do that as much as in-house Jim and his staff will. They'll constantly be, evaluating our current roster. And I've told these players, for almost 2 years now, things are changing, and y'all need to adapt. We're going to have to adapt. And your job is to create value for yourself every single day. You can't just blend in and not be on a list, and everything's going to be okay. That's not going to necessarily keep you here, being a good guy anymore. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and not everybody can be a developmental guy. But we all value, and I know Jim and his staff, they'll value, developmental people too. And we want a roster that's stable, that's cohesive, that there's some consistency to it. And so I think, when you get a chance to visit with Jim and whoever else, is hired on that staff, that you'll see some type of a blend that'll be in that 70-30 high school to portal, 75-25, something that creates the foundation and the stability that you want.
That sounds an awful lot like professional football to me.
Yeah.
It's just how it has to be, though, man. College football's different. The sport has completely changed. Smaller rosters, bunch of money on the line. You better perform, man. It's where we're at now.
That's how it is. And, I'm sure really the entire system changed for a small percentage of people, like with all of the money being thrown around, and the big chunk of most of the rosters, and not your elite of the elite, but it's just totally changed the game. Like a lot of guys signed up to play college football. They didn't sign up to play professional football, but unfortunately that's where they've found themselves now. And there's going to be guys on the chopping block. And, he was talking about, everyone can't be a developmental guy. So you're going to carve off a piece of the roster in high school recruiting. What he said, 70-30, 75-25 with portal and then with high school stuff. But like even the developmental used to, it's like you bring in a guy that's got great traits and then we'll see what happens. And sometimes they turn out, sometimes they don't. But now there's going to be a clock ticking. And if the development isn't happening, you're not going to be there for very long. You're going to have to make progress that shows up and that they can have some way of tracking and account for, because, they're not just out there scouting everyone else. The entire scouting department's going to be watching every practice, every game, hanging around the workouts over, like, are they going to put the observation deck in the indoor like they have in the NFL, wherever all the scouts and GMs are up there watching workouts and practice? I mean, the game's changed, man.
These guys are going to feel a pressure that you and I never felt. It's interesting. Now they're getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them getting paid very well, but it's crazy to think, like, I may have gotten the boot, man.
Yeah.
I was a slow blocking tight end. And if a decision maker now didn't see the vision of like moving me to the offensive line, I could have been one of those guys like, hey man, you need to find somewhere else to play.
I mean, you just wonder, and I don't know, maybe the few guys that were diamonds in the rough that turned out to be great players.
Lane Johnson is one of the best offensive tackles to ever play football. And in this new system, I just I don't think he would have stuck around. He would have
Yeah.
probably been asked to leave. You got to remember, he changed positions like 3 times.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's what I'm saying is like it's going to be very, very hard to find the diamond in the rough because I think about a guy like Mark Clayton, who I came in with, who was, I don't know, 150 pounds, super skinny, had never really been in a weight program. And it took him a while to get up to speed. And he ended up being a first round draft pick at wide receiver. I just don't know that there's going to be the patience for those type of projects, especially with the roster limitation, right? You condense the roster down. So I don't know. It's and Venable said it multiple times. It's changes every 2 hours, and I don't know. It's a weird position to be in.
the man that is going to be challenged to bring in those diamonds in the rough is the new general manager of OU football, Jim Nagy. And let's start with this one, Ted. Here's Nagy on why he chose Oklahoma.
It's just a great opportunity, great place. Wanted to go somewhere where I could win championships. We could win championships, and this is certainly that place. So, just ready for that next challenge. I mean, this is a really cool opportunity. I think a lot of schools right now are saying they're going to a new model, and maybe not really fully embracing a new model. And that's what I felt when I was here on the interview. I really felt that from the leadership here that they were ready to embrace this.
I won't lie. Jim Nagy saying that he feels like he can win championships at Oklahoma. Number one, made me feel a lot better. And number two, got me fired up.
Yeah.
Because this guy, he knows what it looks like. He's been evaluating the best players at the best programs since he took over at the Senior Bowl. And obviously before that, with his scouting career in the NFL. And for him to say that carries weight with me. It got my juices flowing.
Yeah. And I think it represents well for the program. I was just, as I was going through the stuff that he said, I was seeing some of the reaction. I saw someone, tagged him on Twitter. So I just clicked over to his profile, and I think he had like 150,000 followers on there. I mean, for a guy in that position, there's not very many people out there, GMs or the guys that are doing it in college that have that type of following. So I believe him when he says that, and whenever he says good things like that, I think a lot of people end up seeing it and hearing it, and it carries some weight. If that makes sense.
No doubt. And I thought what he said about this school actually embracing this new model, that reflects well on OU's leadership right now. And Joe Castiglione's been getting criticized a lot for what's going on with football and basketball. So I thought it was a nice win for Josie, for President Harris, that he said, hey, OU is actually embracing this new model. Like we're going all in on it. So that was encouraging. But when they hired him, I made it perfectly clear that the number one reason I liked to hire was because he was a football guy. And there are not many quotes you're going to find that are more football guy than this one.
I like nothing more than sitting in a dark room and watching tape. That's what I've done my whole life.
Jim Nagy, football junkie.
Yeah, that's an awesome quote, and I'm glad he said it because pretty important for the position that he's in. That's really where their money is going to be made. There's always a lot of competition for the guys traits wise that just check every box, but you're going to have to find the value. You're going to have to find, players in all the dark corners. And, if we can get this player with this amount of money, it's actually better than getting that player at that amount of money. I mean, that's how you do it. It's evaluation. It's the long hours of, I mean, that's what, you don't think about often, and maybe it hasn't been this direct in the past, but especially for the NFL, they make a seventh round pick on a guy or an unsigned free agent. That facility scouting departments probably put 100 man hours on that player, just watching all the film, talking to coaches, everything behind it. So there's a lot of work that goes into getting the roster right. It's not just, you're not able to just go draft who you want, right? It's going to be tough, but I like everything that he said. I was laser focused. He had me tuned in to, I was in the palm of his hand, Gabe.
That's what we're going for. It's what we need. And I thought that one of the most interesting things he talked about was what's the collaboration going to be like between the coaches and the scouting staff when it comes to evaluating players. And I thought the way that he put it was fantastic.
The coaches are still going to be involved in the evaluation. I want to know which guys they want to coach. Through the recruiting process, when they get to know these guys as people better than we probably will on the scouting side. Okay, well that's where we're really going to come together and blend the talent and the makeup of the player to bring the right guys, because it's not always finding like the best, the most talented guys. It's finding the best fit for OU, especially now in this age. In this era where guys can just get up and go. We want guys that want to be here.
Nagy just gets it, man.
Yeah,
got to work together.
That's right.
Got to work together. You gotta know what these coaches are looking for in a player, and of course the traits, the talent. That's probably number one on the list.
Yes,
but it's about finding the guys that have that blend of talent and makeup that you feel, like you said, are the best fit for OU.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. He said that there's a reason that the teams that look the best usually are the best, right? I mean, it's a trait sport, and that's going to be a big part of the process. But, I liked whenever he was talking about, some of the NFL, learning from some of those guys at an early age. Don't force a player on a coach. There's got to be back and forth, Pete Carroll saying no walls, and trying to get everyone in the same room on the same page. And I mean, that's how it works. It's like, I don't know the proper analogy, but you've got to, you're picking the best player, but you also have to pick the player that, the coach wants to coach. Like there's a balance there. And, as long as it's collaborative and not combative, then I think you're going to end up in a much better spot.
He said something else in his presser. I think he mentioned he learned it from someone in the Packers organization, where he said, you can't force a player down a coach's throat.
Mm-hmm.
And he said all the right things in his press conference. He really did. So I think that, I think it's going to take some work to find what this balance is going to look like. But everything Jim Nagy said made me think that him and Brent Venables and the rest of this staff and the rest of that scouting staff that Nagy assembles, like, they're going to be able to find the balance, because it sounds like collaboration is the only way for him.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And there's, as long as there's give and take, I can imagine there's going to be times when Venables loves a guy, and the scouting side is maybe not nearly as high. And every now and then you got to pick your battles. Like, hey, they really like this guy, good deal. And then there may be other times from the coach's perspective. Yeah, I know, I see what you're saying, but and the coaches need to trust that side as well. It's not just a one-sided thing.
No doubt. And the last clip of Nagy, I just thought he put it very well. It's not just about the evaluation piece now. There is a valuation piece to this roster construction.
I need to know which players in his system are really valuable, because we can't spend money everywhere. So we are gonna value certain positions on this football team more than others. I've got my own ideas of what those are, but certainly Brent and I are going to get together, and that's where we're going to spend. And then again, if you have good players, if you have impact players, you need to take care of impact players. You can't let those guys walk. So we're going to have pillar type players that we don't want to lose, and regardless of position, if we're doing a value chart of the roster, position by position, and it's a position lower, but we've got a great player, we've got a top 100 NFL draft pick or a top 50 NFL draft pick, like, we're going to figure out a way to keep that guy here.
It's still a little strange to talk about this in college football, but I'm very comfortable doing it now, and clearly Jim Nagy is as well. You have to know not only what positions are the most valuable, but like there's a leadership piece to this as well, Ted. But I loved what he said. Hey, we're going to keep our good players.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know. I loved hearing him say that.
Yeah. And, and part of that is when you get the roster built how you want it to be, a certain player's value, may actually go down. I mean, the thing is if you've got a star at whatever spot and there's nothing behind him, that value is totally different. If you've got a star and the guy right behind him you think is 100% ready to break out and going to be that type of dude. So, I mean, just knowing your roster and what guys that you really do need to pile up on and what other guys you have to be okay to let it go. I mean, there's going to be tough decisions there for sure.
He talked a lot about the retention piece and how important it is now in college football. And I think that's something where his experience and all the relationships that he built as the executive director of the Senior Bowl, I think that's going to be extremely valuable. Being able to have honest conversations with guys about not only whether should they stay or go, but what their value, like what their situation looks like if they go to the NFL, what the situation looks like if they come back, like the feedback. He can call all kinds of people that he knows and get their opinions on a player, gather all of that information, and then take that to that conversation with that player.
Yeah.
That's extremely valuable, man.
It is. It's valuable. And, the piece that I wondered, like when Venables was talking about him, like his depth of knowledge dealing with agents, dealing with players, all of that was interesting. The first thing I started thinking of is like, he's used to dealing with certified NFL agents. How is he going to be whenever he's dealing with, hey, this is my Uncle Joe. He's my agent now.
He talked about it a little bit. He was like, hey, listen. And he even said, my son was a high school football player. Like I probably had dad goggles on and thought he was a better player than he was. Like he acknowledged it, but he kind of went back on his experience at the Senior Bowl and was like, if I put in the work and people know I'm coming from a place where I care about the player, then hopefully, everything works out.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to like what he has to say and what his staff has to say.
And that's the other thing is like when you've done your work and it's time to have that conversation and you've got your case laid out and documented and here's where you compare and you lay out the case. There's not a whole lot of sweet talking. You kind of shut a lot of that down, you know?
Also, if it's Uncle Jimmy trying to do the negotiating, the guy ran the Senior Bowl for a long time. I mean, what's he going to say? No, no, no. You're wrong. He's worth more than that. Like,
You don't know.
okay, this is what all these people that I've talked to are telling me about this player.
Yep.
I don't know. It seems like he'll come to those conversations with some ammunition.
Yeah.
That sounded a little violent. That's not how it was supposed to come off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll say this. I was just overall, I thought Jim Nagy was fantastic. Everything that he said, I thought was right on point, and I believe he's going to build out a really good group of guys that are going to put in the hard work and get the evaluations going and get the roster going. And I loved that he was talking about, I want a roster that looks like, we talk about it all the time, right? Guys that just look like animals out there, and you got size, you got length, you got all of those things. And, everyone wants those guys. So it's nothing new that Jim Nagy wants those guys too. It's just, whether or not we can pull it off.
It's talking season, but I thought all three guys, John Mateer, Brent Venables, Jim Nagy, gave us a lot of good stuff. That was fun, man. It's
great.
Spring football's here. Now it's time to see some guys in action.
Yep. Going to be awesome.
Please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, like these videos. We're told that helps. Don't really know what it does. Make sure you're subscribed also. That's supposed to be good for us. And that's all we got. This was fun. And if you really liked it, there's like 3 dots down there. You can give us a super thanks. But other than that, we'll see you next time here on In the Weeds.